If you came across this podcast, you may have typed in, "Do you know him?" If so, who or what are you looking for in life? If you'd like to talk to someone about this, or if there is something you'd like to hear about in a future episode, then please email us at doyouknowhimpodcast@gmail.com. And now on to today's episode.
Welcome to the Do You Know Him podcast. My name is Lowell King, and I'll be your host today. Today's podcast is entitled Father's Day. I wanted to share a little bit about our family before I tell you the story of something that occurred on a Father's Day a few years ago. We come from a blended family of totally different cultural backgrounds and different backgrounds as far as our eating is concerned. So it always presents an interesting experience when we bring the two families together, because my wife, being Mexican American from her side, bringing together from my side, which is a Scotch-Irish German background, we have the very, very wide difference of types of food that we grew up on, as well as the cultural differences. My family, coming from the Midwest, which we call Midwest is Iowa, Illinois area, and my wife's actually born in Texas, so she is a American first and Texas second, but she comes from that heritage of more of a spicy food type of thing, whereas my parents were more a bland diet. So it always presents an interesting cultural as well as food, different styles when we come together as a family. My wife actually has a large family here in the South San Francisco Bay Area, going down into the Gilroy area. And my mom and dad came here from Iowa, Illinois. We don't have family out here. We only have, every once in a while, we would have an uncle or an aunt or maybe a cousin come and visit. But for the most part, we were somewhat isolated here in the Bay Area by ourselves. So there's, again, a cultural difference there. Naturally, both families, though, believe very strongly about families coming together for different holidays. And so we've had to split the holidays as a result of that. And it's worked out fine. We've been married 38 years, and we have, so to speak, been able to bring the two cultures together. My mom and dad have learned to enjoy the beauty and delicacy of Mexican food, which I love, by the way. And my mom's been able to share her cooking as well with my Mexican side of the family. So we passed on the tradition to our kids too. In fact, our family's been one of the families, I should say, who has really encouraged everyone to get together on the various holidays. So I wanted to share that background because in this particular case, we decided that we were going to go to a Mexican restaurant for this particular Father's Day. And by this time in our relationship, in our families being together and all, we went to a restaurant that had, they could have spicy food, or they could have something that was basically not bland, but very tasty, but not as hot spicy as others. So it worked well for my side of the family as well as my wife's side of the family. The restaurant that we chose is actually within walking distance from my old office, and I had been at this particular restaurant on numerous occasions because I could walk from my office directly there and enjoy a nice lunch. They usually had a lunch menu that was somewhat limited in items, but it would be very tasty food and very nice people that waited on you and all that. So it was a place that I would consider that I actually frequented on a regular basis. So I was very familiar with the food, the menu, and the people who owned the restaurant. So this particular Father's Day, I found out that they were going to have a much broader menu. In fact, what they were going to do is bring in some dishes that I had never even known that they had were made before. So I was kind of looking forward to experiencing some of the other food that they were going to be making. And it was a very festive occasion, by the way. They had the mariachi music, and they had tables of food everywhere. I mean, when you walked in the door, we gathered outside the restaurant until everyone was there. We had over 20 people in our group, and when we walked in, the aroma of the Mexican food was just beautiful. It was an overwhelmingly attractive looking restaurant, as well as the food was just smelled great. We just couldn't wait to get in and have our meal. And typically in these kind of situations, I know you probably all have been to these kind of brunches where you basically sit down and they give you a plate and you go out and you just sample the different things that are available there. And you pretty much eat whatever you want. I was looking forward to my favorite dish, by the way, which was flan. If you haven't had flan, flan is a wonderful custard with a caramel syrup over the top of it. And it's one of my favorite Mexican desserts. And so I normally would only get a little tiny dish of flan when I ordered it, during the lunchtime. But on this particular occasion, because it was a brunch, they had a whole dessert table there, and you could have as many as you wanted. So I was looking forward to my fill of flan before the end of the day. So as we went out into the restaurant to get our food, we kind of went in different directions and got our food, and then kind of came back as we did. And we were all waiting together so we could pray before we ate. And I got there back probably, I think I was the second or third person to get back to the table, and one of my brother-in-laws was sitting there, and he was waiting for his wife to bring him a plate. So I started chatting with him, and my wife came and sat down next to me, and then finally the whole table filled up. And I glanced over at my wife's plate, and I said, "Wow, your plate looks so much better than mine." And I started looking at the items that she had on her plate, and I thought, "Hey, what's going on here? I didn't even see those items." Well, they had these tables set up everywhere, and they had the typical stainless steel, I guess you call it, container with a lid on it. And so you couldn't really see the item until you opened the lid, and they were supposed to put the lid back on to keep it nice and warm. And so somewhere along the line, I missed quite a few of these items, and I said, I thought I looked at everything, and I did not see the items that I'm looking at on your plate. Where did you get those from? And she said, "Well, they're on the other side of the wall." And I said, "The other side of the wall?" I said, "Huh, what do you mean? You mean there's more tables over there?" And she said, "Yeah." She said, "There's a whole bunch of things." And she said, "On the other side of that wall," and she pointed towards another wall, she said, "That's where the dessert bar is." And I hadn't taken the time, I guess, to really, really look around. And I guess in some respects you might say, well, you got a plate full of food, and that should be sufficient. You got your money's worth. But I was really looking forward to trying these different dishes. And somewhere or another I missed it all. So anyway, so we went through our meal, and I did take a second plate, and I wound up getting my flan, and I got a few more of the dishes. And it was just a wonderful day. It was one of those days. I was so glad to see my mom and dad enjoy the food, because they're not used to eating Mexican food, but I could just tell by the way they were responding that they enjoyed it, and they were trying different things, and really, really, it was just a great reminder of how we can cross cultures and experience some wonderful cuisine that maybe we never even tasted before. So this is a great situation for us. So anyway, after the Father's Day was over with, we went our separate ways. And the next morning, I remember waking up and I was thinking about the day, and all of a sudden it hit me that I could have gone to that restaurant, even with my family, gone through the motions of Father's Day, and maybe my wife didn't catch the other side of the wall, and neither did I, and we could have gone through that entire Father's Day. We would have had a great day, and we would have enjoyed the food and the music and the whole experience, but we wouldn't have experienced everything that the restaurant wanted us to experience. We wouldn't have, experienced what the chef who prepared the food wanted us to experience. They want us to be able to experience that, knowing that that may bring us back to that restaurant at another time. And it reminded me of a situation one time when we went to Disneyland. I know these are totally unrelated issues, but it's kind of the same sense. Uh, we went down to Disneyland, and I'm one of these guys. If I'm standing in line in the bank, or if I'm in the grocery store, I could be standing in line, which I was in Disneyland. And if there's somebody in front of me or behind me, and I catch their eye, the next thing you know, I'll be in a conversation with them. I don't know. That's just my personality. Some people don't speak to strangers. I happen to be one who does. And I remember I was listening to this man and his wife, and I think they had a couple of kids with them, and they were talking about this particular ride. And I said, wow, I said, do you mind me asking, where's that ride at? I don't remember ever hearing about it. And they said, oh, yeah, it's a brand new ride. They just put it in, and they said, boy, the lines are long, but it was really worth the ride. So they recommended it would be a fun ride to take. So I started thinking about it, and I thought, it's just like the restaurant. I could have missed these items that the chef and the restaurant wanted me to experience. And so I would have the full experience of the restaurant. And the same thing holds true of Disneyland, is they want you to experience all of Disneyland. You could actually drive down to Disneyland, and you could actually park your car in front of the place where you buy the ticket to go in, and you could tell people that you went to Disneyland. Or you could go ahead and buy the ticket and just go to Adventureland, ride those rides or experience that area of the park, and not go to the rest of the park. And you would probably be able to say, I went to Disneyland, just like you could say, I went to Disneyland if you parked in the parking lot, because you technically were at Disneyland. But you hadn't experienced Disneyland. You hadn't experienced El Torito restaurant, which is where we went. You hadn't experienced everything that the restaurant wanted you to experience. And it's kind of like that with life, isn't it, in general? I mean, I remember before I became a Christian, I thought I was experiencing everything life had to offer. I had, every time I felt like I wasn't getting enough of life, I would find a new adventure to go out on, to take a vacation, or buy a new car, or buy a house, or start a new relationship with another person. But it's interesting that in real life, everyday life of being a human being, there was this emptiness that I experienced, this feeling of something missing in my life. And I experienced that pretty much all of my life until I became a Christian. I didn't understand what it meant to have real peace. I didn't have that feeling of fulfillment, or this feeling that which I do now as a Christian, feeling that God is with me in all the circumstances of my life. I didn't have that feeling that of encouragement that I get from God. I don't know how to explain it all, but I just can tell you that without God in my life, I didn't have the things that I have today. I didn't experience life the way God wanted me to experience. And now as a Christian, I am beginning to experience it, and every day is a new discovery. And it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. It'd be like going into Disneyland to ride the new ride, or going into the restaurant and finding out they just came out with a brand new dish they never made before. That's the way God is. He keeps revealing things to you. And so anyway, I want to share that story with you because I saw that there was a connection between all of this that that I guess the question is, are we really, really experiencing everything that we can in life? We can get through life and we can have a great life and we can feel like we're fulfilled, but really, are we? Are we really fulfilled? Are we really feeling like there's nothing more to life that we haven't experienced? Anyway, I just thought I would open that up for a little bit of thought and discussion in your mind. And, hopefully you might decide that you want to pursue that and find out if there's a little bit more that you've been missing. This is the most important question anyone has ever asked you in your entire life. Do you know him?